Hello, 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 y'all. I am fortunate enough to be here today with Mr. Terry Brock. Terry, who the heck are you and what are you doing here today?
I'm a communicator. I'm a guy who is glad to be with you today and been speaking for a little while. I just got started only 41 years ago. So I'm off to a good start after almost 41. It'll be next month, it'll be 41. But been doing that for a while. I'm a communicator. I was a journalist. Undergrad was radio, TV, and newspapers. I've worked in all those. And I do a lot of work with communication, with marketing, and helping clients to make sure that they can leverage that technology to build better relationships.
Awesome. Well, I want to kind of start off. You mentioned how you got started 41 years ago. The kind of world that you started as a speaker in is a different world than today. What was it for you that got you started?
Oh yeah, absolutely. It was different, but then that's the way it's been throughout history. It's always
Hmm.
different. Too often we want to say back in my day, whenever that was, or back in the good old days. Well, whatever. It was different in 1865 than it is today. It was different, and guess what? Next year it's going to be different because we're moving a little bit faster. But for me,
Yeah,
I was speaking. I actually started speaking when I was in high school and doing class plays and drama and those kind of things.
sure.
Kept doing it through undergrad school, and then a little bit in the MBA program. But mainly, as I got out of the MBA program, I found out I was one of 500 billion other MBAs. I think that's the exact number, 500
Hmm.
billion of them out there. And so, how am I going to stand out and get a job and work and all that kind of thing? And so, I looked around and I thought, there was this new thing getting started then. I found something that was really important to people, putting together spreadsheets. And the way we did it way, way back then in the olden days, me and Og back at the cave, we did it. We would use pencil and paper and write things down for a cash flow statement. So you do some things like that, and then net present value and your internal rate of return, all those nifty, groovy things they tell you about in an MBA program. And I saw, okay, I'm doing it in paper, but there's this new thing, hey, called microcomputers. Yeah. And they got this thing called spreadsheets. Oh, yeah, there's a couple of those, and they can do it real fast. So I figured out how to do that on the computer. I taught myself how to use the computer, learning the new technology. There were no classes or anything like that. And then I said, let's take what we were doing there in school and put that in there and started showing folks how to do it. And then I showed a few more and then a few more, and they liked it. And eventually I thought, somebody might be willing to pay for this. So I started training and showing people how to do it, learning as I went on both the how to speak part as well as the technology side. And eventually ended up doing a lot of programs for Coca-Cola. I lived in Atlanta, Georgia at the time. So for them there, as well as over in Thailand and Singapore and Hong Kong, different places, and speaking for bankers and CEOs of large banks, Federal Reserve, and many other companies. And that kind of led to what I'm doing now, that I'm talking about technology, but how to use that technology and leverage it to build better, stronger relationships that are mutually beneficial. So now doing a whole lot with AI, and have been using AI for many years. And now we're doing it with, of course, some of the real good tools that are out there, Chat GPT with their new GPTs, and Perplexity and Claude 3 looking really good, along with several other tools that are there. But I think it all goes back to, and I'd say this for those that are listening to this and watching the program, what you want to do is, the principle is, take the technology and figure out ways that you can help people solve real problems so that they can create better relationships. And as you can do that, whatever the technology is going to be 5, 10, 100 years from now, when we're still doing it 100 years from now, whatever that'll be, I'm planning on it. 100 years from now, still do it. We're going to be able to say, okay, use those principles to embrace whatever technology will help solve problems for other people. And they're delighted to work with you then.
That's awesome. And I think one interesting thing about you in your case is you've been helping people with a problem, but there's been different tools that have come up over these past 4 decades that you've learned how to use to solve that problem, which I think is super, super interesting. For when you first started, what did that look like as far as how you arrived at this is my ideal audience member, these are the problems that they have, this is what I speak to them about? Was it, throw a bunch of spaghetti and see what sticks, or how did you kind of arrive at that point when you were saying your first 2 to 5 years?
I think the principles that I used back then still work today. And what you want to do is not so much a bunch of spaghetti. And I love that analogy. I think that's why, just going to try anything and everything. No, you try something that looks reasonable. Do your study. You've got to study the market. What are the problems they're having? And then what do you know? What tools do you know right now or could learn pretty easily? See, that's the key, because there's going to be new things coming out all the time. Being able to learn quickly and learn valuable, market valuable techniques are going to be really good. It's not just something that I think is nifty and groovy. Well, that's nice. The nerd in me likes to do that. But I got to look at, hey, what are people who are buyers willing to pay for? They're ready, willing, and able to pay for it. Now, if they can do that and we have the skills, or we can learn those skills quickly, I think that's what we're going to be able to do. And that's what we need to learn going forward. One of the things that we need to study now is how to learn fast. How do you learn valuable skills faster? And things that we thought were really good, not necessarily true anymore. For example, one thing, I'm not a coder. We did a little bit of that in the MBA program a little bit long ago, and I enjoyed it, but that's not my area of expertise. But I know for a long time we've said one of the best things you can do is be a coder. Learn how to code. And I value the devs that are out there, those developers that are wonderful, that are doing it. But things are changing, because right now, the most popular programming language, Ryan, you know what the most popular programming language is today?
I'm gonna guess whatever ML language is needed. I don't know if it's Python. There might be a newer language that's used to code machine learning
Python was
models.
very strong, C++, JavaScript, all those really good. The most popular today, English. Because with AI, you can
Yeah.
use English and create your prompts and then tell it to refine that. So that if, as it doesn't work the first time, which is true, I think it's laws of nature, and it's not going to work there, you talk your way through it. You have here's a concept, a chat. You have
Huh.
a chat with Chat GPT or Perplexity or Claude or whatever your tool is, and you have it design the programs for you. So here, somebody really spent a lot of time in there studying Python and learning it. I greatly admire them. Right now, people way smarter than me who are in AI are saying, the most popular right now is English, let alone
Hmm.
where we're going. So that doesn't mean you throw it away, because there's a logic and a training of your brain that you've gone through learning Python or C++ or JavaScript or whatever good tool it was and still is. But use that to leverage now into what can I do that's going to be different? Because this is the way
Hmm.
it's been throughout history. Think back on the turn of the 19th to the 20th century. There were a lot of people that knew how to shoe horses. And that was an important skill for centuries. You say, well, I did it, and my daddy did it, and my grandpappy did it, and they'd shoe those horses. People are always going to need that. Well, yeah, we're still shoeing horses today, but it's a whole lot different than it was back then. But you had to learn other skills and adapt. Learn the skills of shoeing a horse. And what does that mean now that I can learn about these newfangled things called a horseless carriage back then? Learn and be willing to adapt, and the more flexible, the more pliable you can be, and the faster you can learn, the better off you're going to be. I think Bruce Lee told us very well what we need to do: be the water, move and adjust, improvise, adapt, and overcome, is what the United States Marine Corps says. I have to agree strongly with that. Improvise, adapt, and overcome. You keep doing that, learning how to learn, learning how to build on top of what you already know based on the needs of the marketplace, then you're going to do a lot better.
So you've seen all this happening. What would you say to the developer that spent the past 10 years really honing in whatever languages they're coding in? How do you recommend to them they improvise, adapt, and overcome this opportunity that they just got thrown upon them? Because a lot more people speak English and write English than know their skills. How do you kind
Yeah.
of balance that?
That's a very astute question to ask. And I think what we've got to do is look at it and say, don't be discouraged. I'm saying this to the developers that might be watching this. Don't get discouraged thinking, oh, no, it's going to change. No, it's like you've been really good at shoeing horses. That's good. And that doesn't mean you've done anything wrong, but you've got to be able to adapt. Welcome to planet Earth. It works that way here. And those things are constantly changing. And we can say, oh, no, they're not doing whatever my job is. I mean, think back in the late 60s, 70s, as people were really good, some people really good at typing. And they could be the fastest typists, and they really did that well. And they even got new things with electric typewriters. It would spin real fast with that head. Oh, that was really cool. And they could type. Well, now with computers out there, people were saying, wait a minute, do we need a typist as much? Not really. There's not as much demand for that kind of job. But at that time, back in the 70s, early 80s, et cetera, in the 60s, if you could type, you had a real skill that could be used with the computer. So you just have to keep morphing and changing. And I think the lesson then is never stop and rest on your laurels. Never sit back and go, okay, I can take it easy right now. I've found, Brian, every time in my career, when I've sat back, put my feet up on the desk, laced my fingers behind my head, thought, I'm all set now. I can just go into cruise control here. That's when things started going down. Instead,
Hmm.
when I'm saying, okay, this is good, keep doing it, keep learning, keep adapting, adjusting. And what is the market saying now? It doesn't mean every time we try to change, we're going to get it right. We've got to keep trying. But I would say instead of throwing the spaghetti against the wall, you want to make a lot of little attempts at something. And if you have a lot of small failures, you learn from each of those. Failure is not permanent. It's a learning lesson. Use it as a way to say, okay, this has changed. What was before is not anymore. You and I have recently lived through a major change that none of us saw in our lifetime with the pandemic. And we saw, okay, there was a lot going on there. We had to adapt, we had to adjust, and new stuff's coming. There's going to be changes, and the change is increasing at an increasing rate. You think about from a calculus point of view, it's increasing at an increasing rate, which means we've got to learn how to learn faster, be able to adapt quickly, and right now leverage the daylights out of what's available with AI. There's some great ways to learn and to get job done that we couldn't have done before, but it's a new tool you need to learn. Invest the time, the money, the energy to learn the tools that are right for you. So I'd say to that developer, you've learned how to learn. You've learned some really important skills. You're logical, methodical in putting those code together, plus also some creativity that is needed. Good for you. I'm high-fiving you across the miles on that one. But use that skill that you learned to learn to embrace new tools like how do I program in English? In other words, write a prompt with AI, with the various tools. What can I do to serve people that way and be able to meet the market need now?
Interesting. I think that actually makes a lot of sense. And for you having spoken, starting with what it sounds like, if I understand correctly, going into corporate gigs, right? How did you kind of crack into that area when you cracked into it? Or am I missing something here? I'm totally off that you went through a different set of steps.
Oh, no, no, you're on the right track. What I did is I didn't just start by going to the corporation, knock, knock, knock. Hi, I'm wonderful. I can help you. Guess what? You get doors slammed in your face that way.
Right.
That's human nature. What you want to do, though, and what I did is I looked around for what I did and I kind of learned myself. I didn't even own a computer. Didn't have the money to do it. I'm fresh out of school, didn't have much there, and I knew I wasn't going to work at a job, just above broke,
Yeah.
very a job kind of thing. I wanted to get out and do it on my own, but I saw what I needed to do is get somewhere where people could see me. So I found a company at that time that was starting a new thing called microcomputer training. And they would show people how to do it. And I thought, well, I can speak a little bit. I've done a lot of that and learned a lot of courses in undergrad and a little bit in the MBA program. And so I can do that. I started a little class then teaching how to use this newfangled thing that a lot of the folks were interested in called Lotus 123. And so I taught myself how to do it. I had to borrow a computer, had to go down to, I actually went back to school where I graduated from Georgia State University, and I enrolled in an auditing a class so that I could get access to the computer lab. So I thought, okay, that's how I'm going to do it. And I'd get up real early in the morning, take the bus down, get in there, and I just sit there working all day, getting help from others. And I learned how to do it slowly and surely. And eventually I found they needed some people that could train on how to use Lotus 123. I put some stuff together. More people started coming in. At first, Ryan, I was absolutely terrible. It was a mess. People got up and left. People got up in the middle of the class and walked out, and I don't blame them. I was bad, but I learned each time and continued to get better. And I'm doing that today also, always trying to get better each time. But I built on top of that, got the tools, bought them eventually, got involved in other areas where people were saying, we need somebody that can show us how to use this. So when they say they need that, I wanted to be there to serve that market. They told us in business school, you want to find a need and fill it. Make sure you find that need where people are hurting, and then how you can give the skills so that you're getting enough money to pay your bills, it's profitable for you, and it's affordable for them. This is the beauty of the free market. That we say, okay, let's find out where everybody can win. They get the skills they need. I'm teaching them how to do it in this much time versus that much time. Notice my hands are off the screen there. You can't even
Yeah.
see it. It was that much time, but instead they learn fast. It's better for them to pay a few coins to me, and then I show them how to do it faster. get the job done, and everybody wins that way.
And how have you, I checked out your speaker set before we hopped on here. It sounds like, or it looks like you've been doing a lot of almost consulting while managing your speaking business at the same time. Is that right?
Yes, I find they complement each other. By learning the consulting and coaching, that's real world stuff. And if I had 10 times the money that Elon Musk has, which is a lot of money, and I don't have that much yet, but not yet, but don't have that much, but being able to do that, what I would still want to do is do something in coaching and consulting in the real world, because it keeps you sharp. You want something that's challenge, getting out there and doing it. It's too easy to get lazy, and you sit back, and then that starts putting everything in a spiral. I enjoy the speaking. I enjoy particularly doing virtual presentations, because with a virtual presentation, you don't have to get on an airplane again. That's okay. It's nice. I've done it. I think I've seen the inside of every airplane known to mankind, and bounced around the world, and it's been good. And I still want to do a little bit of it. But when I can sit here at home and deliver a message like you and I are doing right now, and we're able to connect, we're able to communicate, and we don't have to physically be in the same place, that's okay. But I'd say keep learning those skills that are market valuable, and keep testing with small little tidbits of information to see how it works and where you're going.
And I would say of your day to day, what percent of your time is going to the coaching and consulting and real world experience, and how much is going into the speaking now after you've been doing speaking, for 41 years?
Yeah, after 41 years of doing, almost 41, next month will be, doing that, I find that I'm doing speaking regularly, and that speaking would be like, for instance, in a few minutes at the top of the hour, we have a group of people who are paying us in our membership program, and we're going to be presenting to them like we do every Tuesday at 4 p.m. Eastern time. And then we've got another program tomorrow that we do. So I'm doing a lot of that. I would say probably 75% of my time is that. The other 25, coaching and some consulting and things like that I like doing as well. So it keeps me out there in the real world, putting information together for real clients, showing them how to do it. And I find something magical happens when money changes hands. Everyone gets more serious. It's like, okay, I got to be really good. They're paying me money. I want my reputation to be good on that. And when people say, hey, I'm giving you money on this, I do want to get a good return on this. Now, we all are in business. We understand what we've got to do. But I think that you want to have something that keeps you on the edge. Keep learning what's new and keep out there in the marketplace. Our brains work better that way.
Oh, can you hear me? Looks like we had
Yes, I'm
a
hearing
little
you just
breakup
fine.
of connection there. You still hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me all right?
Okay, awesome. Looks like my Wi-Fi might be having a problem there. Okay, now you're back. Cool. I wanted to ask you about one thing I saw on your YouTube channel, which was R commerce. Can you explain a little bit more about that?
Yeah, that's something I came up with a while back when I was looking at what to offer and what the market wanted. And I found that's something that the market has really embraced. And where I came up with it is I saw so much was talking about, this was back in like the late 90s or so, people are talking about this new thing called e-commerce and the electronic commerce, really good. And I thought, that's kind of nice. I'm a nerd. I like the idea of technology and the electronics. But I thought, that's good, but it's not as good as what matters most. What matters most in business and has for centuries and will for centuries. That's the relationships, the R commerce, relationships, building those where you're helping each other and you're able to connect with each other and get the job done. So I said, it's not about the e-commerce, all the electronics. It's about the R commerce, our relationship marketing. And so I think what we want to do is use the technology to build relationships. And so when you think about it, you and I are using video right now. And that's good. And we're able to see each other. We're getting a chance to know each other a little bit this way. We're building a relationship in the early stages. And so you can do that. We found that within our programs, our Stark Raving Entrepreneurs program, that's the one that I offer with Gina Carr, my fiance, and I, we put that together and people see it. They have found that they've been able to band together. They've been able to learn together with each other, as well as with the information we give. And we're learning too. So it's something that we're doing, building relationships that are mutually beneficial and helping each other. I think that's the beauty of the free market system. When done right, people are building relationships to one extent or another where they each help each other and they're all better off because of it.
And And you having seen how technology has evolved these, in the amount of time you've been speaking, it taking not taking advantage, I don't want to say, but learning to do certain things that people have spent a lot of time learning that they don't need to do anymore. Like you said, now you could speak English and now you know how to code, quote unquote, right? Which skills do you see in the next 5 to 10 years being replaced? And which skills do you see as, because other skills are being replaced, certain skills become very valuable? Which skill balance do you see going on in the next 5, 10 years?
Yeah, I think what we're going to see is we're going to see it's going to be changing just like it has throughout the centuries. And right now we're hearing from really, really smart people, way smarter than me, that coding is something that is not going to be as strong because we'll be using English. So you need to think, okay, I might have spent all this time, money, and energy learning to code. Build on top of that. But don't hang on to what you did. Don't be this electric typewriter person who says, okay, I can use the typewriter real well. Well, that's good, but you need to morph that over into what the new technology is going to be and start looking at that. I think what you want to do is learn how to learn fast, learn how to read and consume mass amounts of information rapidly. For instance, I took a course years ago, I'm so glad I did, called photo reading. Not speed reading, but photo reading. And I put the time, money, and energy into that, learned how to do it. And the jaded journalist in me was going, yeah, right. They were talking about what you could do. You read 25, 50,000 words a minute. I'm going, yeah, see, they taught us in journalism. You cross your arms and you go, yeah, right. Sure. And so I thought of that, but then I started learning about it and realized, hey, this does work. Yeah, if you apply these principles here, you can do well. So learning to learn fast and remember and retain the valuable information. I'd say that's going to be important, whether you use photo reading or whatever. I don't have any stake in that commercially at all, but I would say learn how to do that. Learn how to memorize, how to remember critical details. Even though we've got great technology with tools that can write down and record everything that we say, you strengthen your memory, you'll do even better. And I think even more than those, as important as they are, learn how to build mutually beneficial relationships. If you can do that, you're going to do well. One of my heroes is the railroad and steel magnate, Andrew Carnegie, who was a real big person back around the turn of the 19th to the 20th century. And he said he would pay a very high price for the person who can get along with other people and get the job done. That's a skill that's going to be important going forward, no matter what. If you know how to help other people, you can sense that. You can learn when people say one thing, they might be saying another. And the way we get that, I have found a lot of times reading the wisdom from people who have gone before us. I like to read what great minds have written down for us. Here we got these wonderful things called books. Whether we use them with paper, well, you see, I got a few books here and I like books. I love reading them. And right now I'm reading most of them electronically. Probably 99% of my books are through Kindle and reading that way, only because what I can do, I can say, what in the world is that word? And I just press and hold it down and it comes back and tells me what that word is. I like it. Or I can take notes real quickly. But learn how to learn fast and read a lot of information, studying the great minds that have gone before us, that have said, here's how you look at human nature. Look at people like Napoleon Bonaparte, the greatest general that ever lived. And what he did to study the terrain, studied other people. And he learned what to do. And don't make the mistakes that he did toward the end, because he made some colossal errors and ended up getting no first Elba island there, and he escaped from there. But then St. Helens, he didn't get away from that and ended up dying there in 1821 there. But we've got to adapt. Look at what people like Julius Caesar did and how he adapted and learned to look at people and understand this is a person you could trust. This person I trust to an extent, but not all the way. We learn what that's like and then how to get along with them and how to be able to persuade people to do something that's going to help them, that will help you as well. And I found a good methodology on that is just always take it that you want to do what you can to positively help people. There's people out there that are also shysters and ne'er-do-wells and people that are out to hurt you. Seriously, this is the way the world works. So we have to be aware to detect that and to behave accordingly. Learn how to improvise, adapt, and overcome when you're dealing with people. So I think those are three skills, three of the most important skills, I think. Learning to read, digest a lot of information rapidly, useful information, learn how to memorize, know what to memorize so you'll be able to do it. And then even most important, how to connect with other people with mutually beneficial relationships.
That's interesting because you're not the only guest I've spoken to that mentioned building mutually beneficial relationships and being able to connect with different kinds of people that operate in different ways. Say it's someone with a very mechanical, engineer focused brain, being able to approach them and have a conversation with them, and then going over and talking to someone who's super creative and much more marketing focused and that kind of thing. It's very interesting you mentioned that.
Yeah, I
Which,
find that there are a lot of very smart people, way smarter than me, say that's the most important. And I find that happens internationally. I've had the
yeah,
opportunity to travel like 44 different countries and see
wow,
different people and talk to them. I've been fortunate enough to be around several people that are multimillionaires, even billionaires. I was around a man who at one time was the richest man in the world. And he
wow,
invited me to come down and speak for a special conference that I did. And I found interesting, all of those people were very successful, very quickly tied into building relationships. And they learned what to do and specifically what not to do. And stay away from so many things that are not going to be beneficial. But when it comes to people, connect with them. Connect with the right people and treat them well. As you do that and as you build those solid relationships, you are going to do much better in life.
that's awesome. Or you mentioned the books you read having a ton of value. Has there been a book of the sounds like thousands of books you've read over the years that you would say if there's one book, and I understand this might be really difficult to answer, but one book that has gotten maybe totally changed the way you view the world, that you've gotten such a pivot in your way of thinking that has led you down a certain path that you've gotten a return on your investment of time reading that book that is so big it's hard to even comprehend. What book for you is that?
I I've thought about that. I can't come up with just one, but I can say there's been several that have been really good, and I would highly recommend reading and reading again. I don't think it's
Okay.
a matter of reading gobs of books. You know, you can read 500 billion books. I have not, but they're reading a bunch of them. But rather, find good books and bring in new, but find those that are really good and that you'll read over again and again. I found that there was some really good. One of the best I've seen. I read over and over. Is called The 50th Law, written by Robert Greene and 50 Cent, Curtis Jackson. And they
Mm,
talk about some real important topics. I particularly like it. And what Curtis Jackson has written in several of his books, I think is just really positive. And it's interesting because that I'm not really his market. I don't listen to that kind of music per se. It's good and it's out there and he does a great job with it, but it's just not me. But I love what he says. And so I found that has been helpful. Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill is another book that would be very good. It's time honored, written back in 1934, but it's still valid today. And I think that's good. I think there's also a lot of wisdom in the texts that we see from literature that's really, really good. I'd go back to books that people say, this is a good one. I can learn a lot from that. And so I would say, find those that are right for you. And by the way, this is where Chat GPT, Perplexity, and Claude 3 come in. You can say, what are some of the best rated books of all time, or give me a list of the top 10 books and that English professors would recommend, or that mathematicians would recommend, or that whoever it might be. If you have a religion, say, you want to find out what those religious leaders say that would be in line with what you're in agreement with. So you find out what others are saying are some of the best books. And when you start seeing them repeated over and over, think, okay, this is really good. I need to go back and read these again and again, and then look for new ones that you haven't read yet. And they go, oh, I keep seeing a lot of people say to read this one. Maybe I should do that. And that's where we've got that advantage today of having the AI tools like ChatGPT, Perplexity, and Claude 3. We can do that. So I'd say take advantage of it.
and of your time traveling to 44 countries that you've said you've gotten to speak on a lot of different stages, which I'm assuming means you've gotten the chance to come into contact with a lot of other cool thinkers and thought leaders and speakers, of which some of them probably have written their own books. Is that right?
Oh, yes, many have. And I found that those are people that have a lot of in-depth insight onto particular areas. I'm a member of the National Speakers Association. And for me as a speaker, that has been very helpful. And so many people that I know have written books on a variety of different topics, depending on their area of expertise. And so it's always fun to sit down with them and say, what do you think about this? Or what do you think about that? Again, building those relationships. And just count it an honor to have known some marvelous people like that who have written books.
Are there any of them that you've read their book and then you've met them in person, and that book, which was written pretty recently, whether that's 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, pretty recently, being totally subjective, was there any authors and speakers that you've been able to sit down with that you read their book and you found it super valuable, which doesn't always happen when with another speaker and the book they've written, right? Sometimes it's written to just kind of check something off a box, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I found a lot of people because I know them. We get to know them as a
Mhm.
person, and then they're my friend. And then my friend writes a book. And so I'll see that and I'll sit down and get a chance to talk with that person or get to know what they're doing and how they're doing it. And so for me, it's always fun to do that. I look at many of the books that I have on my shelf here. I know some of the people from that have written those books, and they've been over here to our home. So we get a chance to know them, and we've been to their home, and I get a chance to know them. So I would say you want to find out the people that are going to be able to have a lot of good information, and they're not always super famous. Often they've written a good book, and we need to know about that, and we need to follow what's happening. And I think that that is really good. Also, I think what you want to do is you want to identify key authors that you want to know. So you say, okay, that person's coming out with another book, and I like what she said before. She's a really good author, has written that. And want to hear an example of Sam Horn is a friend of mine. She has written many good books that help on communication, how to get along with people. I've had a chance to interview her a few times. She's been a best-selling author with many different books. And I find this, okay, if Sam's saying something, she's got a new book out, I want to get that book. And so find those kind of people that you say, okay, I like what that person's saying, and I want to do it. Others I have not been able to meet, but I enjoy reading their books. Think of a person like Adam Grant, who's a professor up at Wharton, University of Pennsylvania. And he's got some really good books out that I have found really helpful to learn and to grow from what he has said as well.
Awesome. And for you, with knowing and really having an expertise in relationships and our commerce, as you call it, also knowing tech trends and seeing where those are going and where those have gone in the past 41 years, and also having a wealth of experience in speaking, combining those three things, what advice would you give or guidance would you give someone that is going into speaking today? They have a story, they know they have a story. They're just really intimidated. Maybe they're afraid of getting on stage, or maybe they're just afraid of, oh man, I have to build a whole business around this. I just want to talk to people. What what guidance do you have for that person?
I would say the points you raised there are very, very important, and there are people like that. Some people say, I don't want to get out and do all the marketing. I just want to get on stage and speak. That's good. Others realize very quickly if you're going to be a professional speaker, you got to know how to market and how to sell. If you're going to do it like in any business, that's what you have to do. Find out what's right for you and then get involved. Don't try to do it alone. One of the best things that happened to me was when a wonderful man named Jim Cathcart introduced me to the National Speakers Association many years ago. We were both speaking at an event. I had heard of him before. He had written a lot of content and had some audio learning materials out there on the market with some other folks. And so I got a chance to meet him. He introduced me to the National Speakers Association, and that has helped me. I would encourage those that are thinking about it, find a group you can get involved with. And you might need to experiment and try different groups. I know that here in the United States, the National Speakers Association has been very good for me, also because it's a part of the Global Speakers Federation. So a lot of the work I've done internationally has been because I have friends and people I know in places where I've spoken, like England and Australia and Canada and France and Dubai, and different places where I knew somebody. Then they say, okay, Terry, we know you. We're having an event here on this date. Why don't you come over and we'd love to have you speak for us? So I get a chance to learn from them. And I would say you want to be able to expand your mind, look at what the market is saying, and make it a point that this is business. You need to commit. That means not just look at it and go, okay, I might go attend a meeting and see what it's like. No, go check it out, see if it's right for you. And if it is, be willing to put in the time, the money, and the energy, the TME, to make sure you can get the most out of it, and find different groups that you can work with. Another friend of mine who's also a New York Times bestselling author is Harvey Mackay. Harvey Mackay has talked about the importance of having the right groups that you get into. being in those groups and having different groups that can help you in different areas. He was telling me that he has NSA, National Speakers Association, to learn about speaking. He also has a coach that teaches him speaking, helps him to get better. Even though he's in the Speaker Hall of Fame, he still works with coaches to get better. And he has a writing coach, and he had coach for golf because he enjoys golf. So he had coaches then. You have different coaches at different times. And I think that's a smart way to do it today. Find out what you need to know, and then find who's there that knows that really well, and be willing to part with your capital. I had a chance once to spend some quality time with a guy named Tony Robbins, who's very well known as a speaker, bouncing around. And I got a chance to sit with him. I picked him. It was my job. He was speaking for NSA. My job, I'm going to put that in air quotes, job, to go and pick him up at the airport and bring him back to the hotel. Okay, fine. And I found it was incredible, just between us. Okay, don't tell anybody else. This guy's wonderful. It was great. It was really good talking with him. I mean, when there was no one else around, and then seeing the way he reacted when people came up to him, he was gracious and kind. When we got to the hotel, it was so cool. Got him checked in, everything was fine. And I said, okay, I'll see you. And he goes, oh, Terry, would you mind coming up to the room? I want to talk with you about a couple of things. You have a moment? I thought, yeah, I think we can work that out. So I went up to the room, and for like an hour and a half or so, we went through talking about speaking, talking about his presentation the next day. He wanted to know about our group, what was important to them, how he could zero it in and make it really personalized. And that impressed me. I was very impressed. And I think when you see people doing certain things, people successful like Tony Robbins, and what he did at that time for me, this was many years ago, but he went out there and he helped others, and he then did it the next day. We could see he was using exactly what I told him about. Like, this person is known for that, or here's a funny joke you can use, and you talk about this person doing that, and it'll be good, and everyone will love it. And they did. And so when he did it, and then some of the people who knew I had picked him up at the airport looked over at me and just gave me a thumbs up. Oh, yeah, Terry, okay, we know you told him that. But I say, this is what he did. So I think what we've got to do is keep learning, constantly learning from people who are really good, people who have a great message, and even those who don't. We can still learn from them. Was it Henry David Thoreau said that I can learn from every person? He actually said every man, but I'd say every person, because that person can teach you a lot, even when it's don't do what this guy does. Do something else. Let that be a teacher. And I think as Chris Brogan says, that what we need to do is we need to grow bigger ears. Listen more. Listen more carefully. Too many people talk a lot, and they're not asking enough questions, not listening and growing, and they don't serve themselves there very well. But when you stop and step back and ask more questions, I think we learn a lot more.
Last question here, because I know we're running short on time here, and you've got important things you got to get to. You mentioned what Harvey Mackay said in the value of groups, and you mentioned NSA. Are there any higher level masterminds, maybe for professional speakers, that you're part of, that you pay a membership to be part of, that you think maybe they're not super well known, but if more professional speakers that are looking to network with other people that are having similar problems could be part of this group, they'd find it very valuable?
Yeah, there are a lot of them. And I find that when you get into a group like a National Speakers Association and other groups out there, people tend to get to know each other. And then they say, hey, we've been thinking about getting together with you. And it's not necessarily a formal thing. It's more of a, with this person, that one, and that one. And we know all of them. We're all friends, but we're going to commit to being there. Gina, my fiance, and I have been in various mastermind groups through the years. And I find the mastermind groups sometimes come and go based on changes and based on needs and where people are in their lives. And we've been able to be with some people who in their niche are very famous and have done a lot. We get to know them so that we can say, here's what I'm thinking about. What do you all think about this? And they can people that really know you and can give you an honest answer. And they can say, Terry, that'd be a good idea. Or other times, that's not a good thing, Terry. That wouldn't be good for you. It might be good for somebody else, but here's why. And they're supporting you. Look for those people who you can trust. And there are many other paid groups that are out there. We have been involved in a lot of groups depending on the need. Matter of fact, just a couple hours ago, I was in 2 groups, both online, that have different areas of expertise. One is a group where it's a software package, an application that I'm learning, and some really, really smart people who know it are there, and I'm learning from them on that. And there's another one that's teaching us some things about YouTube, and teaching us some things about communication, what to do, nitty-gritty things like how to build a thumbnail, how not to do a thumbnail, what to do on your bios and your description, those kind of things. So those are groups that we're in also for a specific purpose, like Harvey Mackay was talking about. And we learn from different groups. And I think this is the way that smart people move forward today. They're willing to part with their time. As a matter of fact, I remember Tony Robbins telling me, the back of the limo, the importance of people being willing to part with their capital. That was his word. They'd be willing to part with your capital, to invest that into your mind. And I remember there was a quote from Ben Franklin. He said, pour the coins of your purse into your mind, and your mind will overflow your purse with coins. And I
Drop the
thought, that
mic.
makes a lot of sense. That what you want to do is part with the money you have, the coins you have, get a good return, and then learn something that's going to help your mind to earn more. And then your mind will fill your purse with coins.
Love it. Let's say I'm a listener here and I am finding what you're saying so valuable. Where can I find you online?
Online, it's real simple. You can go to terrybrock.com. You'll find out about it. And let me spell that, because both of them can be misspelled. It's Terry is Terry, and Brock is spelled the right way, Brock. So terrybrock.com, and you can send me an email, terry@terrybrock.com. Real simple, and be delighted to hear from you.
Beauty. Love it. Well, Terry, thank you for making this appearance here, and we will stay in contact. And listeners, I hope you found this very valuable. He's got tons of knowledge that hopefully you're able to leverage for your own speaking business. Cheers,
Thank
y'all.
you very much, Ryan.